Hello and welcome to the Utah Rural Summit's virtual symposium series. The Utah Rural Summit has a rich history of convening key stakeholders to discuss and share innovations that have been keeping our rural communities vibrant. This presentation focuses on an important aspect of having a healthy and resilient community. Listen to the gained experience, examples, and leadership. When we come together, share our best, and are willing to support each other, we collectively win. Enjoy participating in this session.
Welcome to the first virtual symposium to kick off the Utah Rural Summit. Today's panel is focused on tourism, and our discussion today is titled Tourism in Utah, Past, Present, and Future. Tourism has a profound impact on local communities and our overall state economy. Last year, visitors to Utah spent over $10 billion throughout the state, which supports about 141,000 jobs. Furthermore, this spending has also led to about $1.33 billion in local and state tax revenue. That equals roughly $1,300 in tax relief per household in Utah. However, 2020 has been a very different year. The COVID-19 pandemic has been economically devastating, and perhaps no industry has been affected more profoundly than tourism. Many small businesses in our industry are struggling to survive, yet there are many of those who are on our panel discussion today who are working hard to overcome challenges and demonstrate resilience and creativity as we begin to safely welcome visitors back to Utah. So that's what our conversation will be about today. My name is Bianca Lyon, and I am the Community and Partner Relations Director for the Utah Office of Tourism. And I'll introduce my fellow panelists. We have Camille Taylor. She's the Tourism Director for Kane County Office of Tourism. Cody Adent, Director of the Utah Tourism Industry Association, we call UTIA. And we have Lance Syrett, who is the Resort Level GM and Director of Sales for Ruby's Inn family of hotels in the Bryce Canyon area. So I will get our conversation started and ask, I guess I'll just start with asking everybody, how has COVID changed your views of tourism in the past? And how has COVID changed your perspectives on how things used to be in our field and in our industry?
I can go first, Bianca. I just think tourism was a cakewalk in the past compared to trying to do tourism during COVID. It's been so rapidly changing. You've had to be so nimble now, so responsive. And I look back at 2019, and you all know that it was a rough year, at least to that point, because we had the government shutdown. We had Zion Mount Carmel Highway washout, then the wettest spring in like 24 years, followed by one of the driest summers. So I was like, oh no, it's such a rough year. But whew, 2020 has smoked it.
Yeah, I agree with Camille. It's, looking back, you always look back at the past with fondness. You kind of look through rose-colored glasses. You kind of remember the good times. And used to be tourism business. I used to joke it was kind of like a farmer's almanac where, you kind of predict how things are going to go and your peaks and your valleys. And you always get a little bit of a curveball, but it's nothing too big. And as Camille mentioned, things like the government shutdown, things like that, they definitely affect your business, but 2020 has been unprecedented in the damage to the industry, and you just on a year where if your revenues are down 10%, that's catastrophic, and you can't even wrap your brain around when revenues are down 50% or 60%. It's just very surreal. And again, as I look to the past, it makes you appreciate the good times, and yeah, I wish we could get back to that.
Yeah, to echo their sentiment, I think I started in tourism in about 2017, so kind of the heyday of the Mighty Five campaign and when everything was really clicking in all cylinders. And I'm down in southern Utah, so I was in the Zion area, and it just felt like this thing's never going to stop. Like we've just got this ball moving, and the obstacles that we had seem so trivial to think back to them now, and some of the changes through legislation, through government that we thought might happen seemed like they would be so devastating, but nothing could compare to what the impact that COVID has had. And so I think that there's a lot of learning from that, because I think we saw so much infrastructure in Southern Utah and building and VRBOs and how many vacation rentals came on the system, and even all the additional hotel rooms that we had. And everyone just kind of felt like what 2017 was going to be our future in perpetuity. And now we've obviously seen, the landscape change so drastically. And so I think it definitely allows you to take pause as you plan in the future. And even before, when I think about like when we would do our budgeting and our forecasting, that's almost impossible at this point for us to do, because our booking window has changed so dramatically, where before it was 100 days out and now it's 10 days. So if I had to articulate what even September looks like, it'd be very difficult for me to do so, because the trends of the consumer have changed so dramatically. And I think that there was times that, people took for granted our international travel, which has basically disappeared. And so there's just so many avenues of our world today that are different than what they were in the past. And so it's been really interesting to see how we have to move and navigate those waters. And I think there's a lot of victories we can take away from the past, and certainly a lot of new learnings for the future.
Plus, gratitude for travel. I think I brought up to you guys, one of the things that I found really interesting of all the webinars that I've watched, one of them that I watched was had Samantha Brown from the PBS travel show, and she said social media erodes the way we treat each other, but travel connects us. And I've seen that more this year than I've ever seen that on social media. It seems like there's just such a lack of regard or kindness that's shown, and as human beings we need to connect. The older we get a little bit more rigid in our thinking, our routine, the way we think life should go. But when you travel, that's one time where you actually are kind of like a child again, where your brain is open, you're accepting of a different environment, you accept different culture, different ways of doing things, and you connect with people. Travel is transformational. Social media is not, but yet that's how the world is connecting right now, is virtually. We need travel as the human species, I believe.
Just to build on your point there, Camille, I think the first time I saw a survey regarding this was after 9/11, and then several times throughout the years, and through the Great Recession. And they went out and interviewed people, and they asked them about where does travel play into your budget? If things are bad, if money is limited, what's your hierarchy of needs? Are you going to cut back on, let's say, okay, are you going to eat top ramen instead of steaks? Or are you going to buy a smaller car? And it seemed like going into the survey that those doing the survey kind of made the assumption that travel would be very low on the list as far as the hierarchy of what people are going to spend their money on. They found out that people feel like they have a right to travel, and they have a need to travel and to visit places, and they might trade down, and they might not stay at the Ritz-Carlton or something like that, but they're going to travel. And I think it just kind of builds on your point there, that the travel is needed. It's basic human nature. You got to travel, you got to go connect, you got to be around people, you got to be around things, you got to see cool stuff. Something in our DNA.
I'm glad this is a really, really important point. I'm glad that Lance and Camille brought that up about the importance of travel, what that means to us as human beings, and connection, and those experiences that you have with your family that are such important parts of the fabric of who we are as human beings. And so I'm relatively new in my role. I've been in the role since April. I've been working pretty much virtually and remotely since I started. And one of the things that I remember on those first few days and weeks when I entered the job was working with our leadership team and our director, Vicki Varela, on our marketing strategy, going through a time when people were fully restricted on travel or very skeptical of travel in those early days of COVID. And we made the decision to remain, have a presence in our marketing. But it was really inspiring people to keep people engaged with Utah, to have Utah be part of their thinking as they were planning for future travel, rather than removing ourselves entirely from that type of engagement. And we're now seeing a lot of positive aspects of that work. It was very thoughtful advertising. It was a called Small But Mighty campaign, where we talked about how the sacrifices of all of us together are like the grains of sand in Bryce Canyon, and how, how important and symbolic those gestures are, and how one day you'll be able to come back and celebrate these places. They're timeless. They'll be here forever. And I think that was a really wise decision for us to stay engaged with the market, so that people were inspired planning their trips. And then, I think we're now seeing a lot of positive return on that really thoughtful marketing that we did at that time.
I think to continue off what you guys are saying, I know for myself, when I have travel planned, then you have an incentive to be excited, or to exercise, or to eat right, or whatever it is that gets you excited about your vacations. It's ongoing throughout the year. So it's not just the moment of the trip that is good for your health and your well-being, but it's also the preparation of it. And Krista Perry, who gave a keynote at the Utah Tourism Conference and was also a breakout speaker at the Southern Utah Tourism Summit, talked about how for many people, the thing that they're most excited about when it comes to travel is the planning aspect and the anticipation leading up to it. And I know for myself, I've had to cancel quite a few vacations this year, and I realized how much I miss like the time leading up to it. And of course, I love being in the destination and having that real time with my family. I've got 2 young kids, and I use travel as a way to escape and really be present with them where I work as often as I do. And so not only did I look forward and prepare for it, but then of course you get the time to reflect and really be in the moment, kind of to what Camille was saying, being present in the experience. And so I look forward to everyone getting the opportunity to get back to those habits.
That leads me to our next question. Is what is tourism like in your respective areas? If you want to take a first stab at that, Lance, go ahead.
Yeah, I threw out a few numbers in my first comments there, but it's pretty bad. I was interviewed on a TV spot for a news segment, and I use the word biblically bad. It's biblically bad. So it's the only way I can describe it. We've been through government shutdowns. Of course, we're on the doorstep of Bryce Canyon National Park. So as Bryce goes, that's how our business goes. And well, when the federal government shuts it down, it's kind of like being across the street from Disneyland when Disneyland's closed. So there's not much reason to go there. So, but as I say, numbers, our revenues are down. It depends on the department too. At the revenue center. So it's kind of a mixed bag. Some of our retail is about even with last year. The people that are traveling are spending money and buying groceries and souvenirs, things like that. But as far as lodging, with my marketing agency, we talk about the ICKY scale, and I'll explain what that is. And that's when you think about COVID and you think about activities that are going to be high exposure to COVID, or at least people's minds' perception. You think about cruise ships, you think about amusement parks, or if anybody's watching this that represents those, I'm sorry. But anyway, airlines, you think about things, those are high on the quote unquote ICKY scale. And, you think about things that are low on the ICKY scale, the wide open spaces, camping, activities like that are perceived to be very safe. And, hotels are kind of in the middle there. Obviously we do have RV park and campground here that's been, very busy this year. And a lot of our activities, the horseback riding, the ATV tours, they've also been busy this year. A lot of people see those activities as being safe. But again, it's, and here in Bryce Canyon, we are kind of the big fish in the small pond up here. And, if things are hurting for us, it's even worse for the other local businesses in the area. So it's bad. And, I always touch on just our government. We're a rural area. We're, our county has just over 5,000 people in it. The town of Bryce Canyon City has about 200 people in it. The budgets, and you don't appreciate that when you're in an urban area, as far as how budgets are affected by sales tax, room taxes, use taxes. If you're in a bedroom community, 90% of your town budget might come from property taxes. When you're in a tourism community, 90% comes from sales tax. And when your revenues cut by 50%, your tax revenues cut by 50%, that cuts your town budget by 50%, your county budget you can see my point. So yeah, biblically bad. That's how I describe it.
I can echo on Lance's point. I've not called it biblically bad, but I've called it Jumanji. It's like just one thing after another, because here in King County, it's like, yeah, we've had the whole COVID crisis, but then we rely quite heavily on the north rim of the Grand Canyon. It's just across the border, and that really adds to the value proposition of staying in Kanab as a base camp, because you got Bryce, Zion, the north rim, and then Lake Pelion, you're right in the middle of it. But the north rim opened, I think it was 3 weeks later than scheduled, and then soon after it opens, it closes down because of the large mangum fire. And then it gets opened again. The wave lottery was shut down due to COVID. It opened back up. It got shut down because of the mangum fire. And then it got shut down because of a Pine Hollow fire. So, you know, it's like each day is an adventure down here. It's kind of Jumanji is what it feels like. And I saw a meme that just resonated with me. It's like, I wouldn't even be surprised if dinosaurs came back. I'd just be like, oh, hey, there's a T-Rex. So it's been a wild ride here. I mean, our numbers are down remarkably, and I would be depressed about it, except that I know we have great ability to bounce. You know, I think in Utah, it's in our pioneer heritage. We're survivors, we're thrivers, we're adapters. So some way, somehow, we're going to pull out of this, and so I continue to remain hopeful.
And I just want to say, Camille, that your branding and all of your your materials and all of your outreach is just so polished and well executed. And I think through this whole this challenging time, I think that the King County Office of Tourism really has put its the right foot forward when it comes to really strong materials and really great branding, and I think that's really worth some of those who are participating and watching today to look into and to research more about, because it's really fantastic.
Oh, thank you, Bianca. I appreciate that. The team has worked very, very hard. So it's good to hear that. Thank you.
What I will say too is, with all the challenges that we've had, we're super fortunate to be in Utah because we do have the outdoors. So we've got our 5 national parks and all of our incredible state parks. And so I think that people are flocking here because we're offering, to Lance's point, something that feels safe and comfortable, and they don't have the bad connotations with. And so we've got obstacles with our national parks and what systems they have to put in place to protect themselves. And that makes it a little more challenging for private businesses in and around those areas, but at least we have them. So we're really, really fortunate to have that as a state, but certainly our downtown and urban areas are really, really struggling. Convention business for like our downtown Salt Lake area is essentially dissipated entirely with no real timeline for when that's going to return. And so we're seeing many properties in our downtown areas that aren't even getting to 25% occupancy. And I don't know that convention business will ever come back in the capacity that it was before, as I think everyone will move to a virtual component to their event in some fashion. And as companies realize, like with working from home, that there's a lot more flexibility that you can give your employees and your staff, and there's so many different ways to go about education now that I think that we'll find that a lot of places won't send their employees to conventions like they did in the past. And so there's certainly that obstacle, and my hearts are with all of our downtown and urban locations. But the other things that we have that have been really good is the federal government has done some great things with their EIDL funding and with the PPP loans. And so we're really fortunate that, in a lot of regards, they've stepped up and really made it possible for businesses to survive, which I really believe that, and I know of businesses that if those things didn't exist, that they wouldn't have made it without it. And so we're really lucky to have those. And essentially the state with what GoEd office has done is really remarkable. The rental assistance program was absolutely huge. And it's unfortunate that not as many people even took advantage of that as that they could. And there's still money available in there. So if you qualify for that, I highly suggest it. And then we've got the Safe in Utah program that was able to give you money for every full-time employee you have towards purchases for PPE. And then the most exciting program I think that the state has is the Shop in Utah program, which had a $25 million budget that was taken right away, and hopefully we can get more money in there for people who didn't yet get the funding for that, but that has just been absolutely huge, and that's incentivizing travel, where restaurants and retailers and outfitters and lodging properties are giving up to 50% off on some of their destinations. And so we're making it possible for Utahns to travel and have that awesome staycation experience. And so as troubling as it's been, I'm just super thankful that we're in the state of Utah and that we've got the awesome leadership that we do, and that they've worked together to create these incredible campaigns. And even with the Utah Office of Tourism, if we can get the Mighty Five going again and really talk about pride with what our state has to offer, that's going to be really impactful for all of our destinations around the national parks. And so there's been lots of negatives that have come from COVID, but there's also some real positives that are shining to light as well, and will be a stronger, more intelligent industry because of it.
I'm really glad you brought up all those programs, Cody. I agree. I think that that the state leadership here really has a lot of faith in our industry and understands how important our role is in the state's economic recovery. To your point, the programs such as the Commercial Rental Assistance Program and the Shop in Utah, Safe in Utah, and Create in Utah, which is for nonprofit arts and cultural organizations. I think this is all very affirming of our role in our recovery. And, you know, also to put a finer point on it, the legislature also gave us a $12 million package to essentially fund some really key marketing initiatives to kind of help restart the tourism economy again. And to your point, Cody, that is about promoting the best that our state has to offer. And we're ready and welcome we're ready to welcome visitors once again with some of these programs. But we're very fortunate that we have the leadership in place that sees our industry as a really key part of our recovery. So on that note, you know, this is kind of a future-looking question. Some questions for the panel about what you see happening in the industry going forward. How do you think that COVID will be changing us certainly for the better? What lessons have we learned? And how will we be ready to welcome visitors again? And we're certainly already doing so, but how will we be welcoming them differently in the future? So I'll turn it over to you all.
I can start for this one. I think that one thing we'll see is operators being more nimble and quicker to adjust. And so I think that I talked about our booking window going down from 100 days on average to about 10 days. And so you've got to be a little bit more strategic, more willing to adapt. I don't know when international travel is going to come back. And so I don't even know when airplane travel to the level that we had will return. And so I think it changes the strategy from a marketing perspective that you'll see people develop. And I think that what this has taught people as well is you've got to make whatever your business is, be it an outfitter or a restaurant or a lodging property, you've got to find out how to make your property the destination so that they're coming to see you. And it's just an awesome bonus that you're next to Bryce or next to Canyonlands or next to the Grand Canyon. That's just a bonus. But what you're coming for is the property. Because if we do a better job of making our property the hero, then we won't be as reliant on outside forces. And I think because Utah has so much to offer, it's really easy to just run a marketing campaign that says, come see the Narrows and stay at our property, and people want to do that. And so it's really easy. And I think we're going to have to be more creative in our approach. And I think that's a real positive because I think that'll extend length of stay if they realize that there's so much offered within the community that isn't one of our amazing parks or outside activities. And so I think that's something that we'll see. And I think that people will be more strategic in the way that they run their fiscal operations and just, you know, being prepared for anything really at this point. And I think we don't know when recovery is going to come. So it's really kind of 1 month at a time. But I think we're really fortunate that we have all these amazing offerings as a state. And I think that people will continue to want to come to Utah. And if international travel is stopped, I think that we have an opportunity to gain some of that consumer. So the people who would go to Europe or go to a Mexico or Canada, I think Utah is really well positioned to get those consumers. And so I think even if we still have some restrictions going into 2021, because of those new opportunities that maybe didn't exist before, that we'll be able to have a really successful year, especially if the Mighty Five campaign is up and going again. I think that we can see some really awesome numbers and see some of our past years recently that we can actually surpass and what our businesses are able to do. To
further Cody's point, with like domestic travelers, one of the things that I learned is if we had no outbound US travelers and no inbound internationals, we stand to gain 19 million travelers. So they've got to go somewhere. And part of that, though, is the confidence level. At some point, we have to transition to confidence, and that's going to have to come from leadership. I think they really need to step up their game with, hey, we're ready to receive you. Our hospitals are equipped. We're using good practices in our community. Our lodging are safe and hygienic. I mean, there's got to be this message of confidence that's got to start from our leadership level. One of the things that we're learning here in Kane County, and I think would apply to all of rural Utah, is your visitors are your future residents. Tourism is the front door to economic development and other industries. And for us, that's turning into like the digital nomads. You know, they're coming here, they're able to work remotely. Kanab has incredible Wi-Fi connection. We have fiber to every home. A lot of cities don't have that golden mile, as they call it. And so we're really lucky. And a lot of digital nomads are kind of flocking to the area because they can work remotely and have this nice wide open spaces area with lots of off the beaten path opportunities, no crowds, low population. So I think that's really going to play into our future marketing. And also when we are marketing, because our culture and our heritage and our values are so important to us in rural Utah, I think we need to be strategic in our marketing so that we are attracting the type of future residents that we want. And not that the gates are closed to anybody, but you have to recognize that tourism is so influential into your future residents. And I think that's where Kane County is like, okay, how do we start to be more mindful of this? We don't want to become a tourist destination that's losing its roots like a lot of places do as you start to bring tourists in. We want to keep it a traveler destination where you can come and experience culture, multi-generational, deep, and the heritage and values that help create that area rather than lose it to tourism.
Well, I agree with what Camille and Cody have said, and you know, I was asked recently in another interview, and they asked me, they said, "Well, what's the silver lining? Is there anything good coming out of this? And what do you see for 2021?" Similar question, and one of the things I like to say is, you know, as far as our drive market, as far as especially our Utah residents, they're finding out that we have a pretty great place to visit right here. You know, I always throw out the comment that you know, I'll talk to a German guy most years, and he'll say, "Hey, this is my third time to Bryce Canyon National Park," and I'm like, "Hey, that's so cool." And then I'll meet somebody from Salt Lake City, and they'll say, "I've grown up here my whole life, and I've never been to Bryce Canyon National Park." So if there's one silver lining in COVID, I think that's it. I think that people are figuring out that we got some pretty great places to visit right here in the state. You don't have to go to Disneyland over UEA to get a good experience. You can stay here and you can go see our national parks and our wide open areas. I mean, man, there's places in the area, and I always say this kind of tongue in cheek because I don't want any more public lands, you know, monuments or anything like that. But I'll tell you this, as I say, there's places in the state. If they were in any other state, they would be national parks and national monuments. You know, go find those places. Go find where you can go. Kind of find your area, your special area. You don't have to go out of the state to find those areas, you know, those special places that you want to go back to every year. And 2021, I hope things get back to normal. You know, one thing I want to touch on though is just it's more of a logistical thing, but just in the industry, you know, there's a lot of things that have popped up, you know, as far as the PPE and things like that. You know, those things are. You know, a lot of those things are probably here to stay. I hate the masks. I think that one thing with the hotel industry is that smile to greet you when you come up at the front desk, and that interaction and truly be hospitable. So, you know, I think maybe some of the partitions, things like that might be here to stay, but I hope the masks aren't, because there's something that is to be said with a server smile or a front desk agent smile, a housekeeper smile. So, but as far as like a lot of the cleaning methods, things like that, I think those are here to stay. And, you know, we already had a lot of those in place anyway when I, you know, received the cleaning requirements from the state and a lot of the things. I'm like, this is stuff we already do. It wasn't a big change. The only change was, again, some of the mask requirements, things like that. So.
The Those are really interesting points, Lance. I think we all have a responsibility in, making consumer confidence, building consumer confidence for visitors. And, that's through, taking the right precautions and the right steps, and then certainly promoting them too, to give people that sense of safety and that feeling of safety. And, as the research has shown, and I know Lance knows this pretty well from our weekly marketing calls, but the research is really indicating that these precautions and promoting these precautions really helps travelers feel safe and more comfortable visiting a location. And so if we can, try to identify opportunities, whether it's, the Stay Safe to Stay Open pledge that the Salt Lake Chamber is leading, or other types of certification programs, such as like what TripAdvisor is pushing forward, which I'll say we'll be having a panel discussion on at the upcoming tourism conference. We haven't had a chance to mention that yet, but the tourism conference is going to be both virtual and in person on September 23rd and 24th. And so I encourage everyone who's watching today to learn more about the tourism conference at utah.tourism.org and find a location or a way to participate that they're comfortable with. But we will be having a panel discussion that will be discussing in more detail about what TripAdvisor's safe travel practices initiative is, and how communities and how businesses can get involved. And so I think promoting the things that we're already doing to keep people safe is really important, and just taking credit for the things that we're already doing to keep customers and to keep guests safe is really great and really vital. So,
hey Lance, I don't think you need to worry about a smile when you got a mask like this.
That's a great
abracadabra.
I do want to piggyback off of what Lance said, because my wife has lived here her whole life, and she'd be embarrassed for me to say this, but she'd never been to any of the parks besides Zion until last year. So last year we made a commitment to go get all over the state and took our children to all the national parks, and we stayed at Lance's property up there in Bryce, and our favorite experience of the entire summer, and we went international on different vacations as well, and he went to Disney World, but our favorite experience was Lower Calf Creek Falls, close over there to Lance's property. And it's like, I didn't even know that existed there. I had no idea. I know there was a waterfall in the middle of the desert. I mean, that was unbelievable. It was like just the most incredible experience ever. And so there's so much that our local residents can go out and explore and experience. And what I would ask of them is look up the In Utah program, find where you can get your deals. And if you're budget conscious and you're going to pack food, I just ask that you buy the food in the destination that you're going to. Don't buy it where you live and pack it in. Buy it when you get there. If you can't, if it's not in your budget to go to a restaurant and you have to do that, that's totally understandable. But just support the community that you're visiting. And if you have it, and if you're able to, please go out to the restaurants and support them. I mean, they've been hit so hard, and so and take advantage of the In Utah programs, because they need spending to qualify for that grant anyways. And so please take advantage of that and support our local businesses. Everybody needs it.
Plus, where should they be in November?
What was that?
Cody, where should they be in November?
In November, you need to register for the Southern Utah Tourism Summit. So it was supposed to happen in April, but we had to postpone it because of COVID. So it'll be November 5th and 6th in the brand new Kanab Center, which we're just so excited to have an event there. It's going to be incredible. And we'll have lots of updates for you on all things 2020 and 2021. So please make sure to register for that. And of course, don't forget, as Bianca said, to register for the Utah Tourism Conference, which is happening in September. So we've got, if you want to see the keynotes live, you can network with a group of your peers, 50 or less in Salt Lake. That's $99 because we're able to offer 50% off thanks to Shop in Utah. And then we'll have watch parties in Logan, Ogden, and St. George, also a group of 50 or less, where you'll be able to watch the keynotes take place virtually with all of your peers. And then if none of those solutions work for you, we have a virtual option, which is only $49 that you can watch from the comfort of your home or office. So we've tried to be really flexible, both in how we're presenting the conference and the affordability of it this year, to make sure that everyone can participate. So please go on and register for that. And if you want to be at a watch party or in Salt Lake, don't wait, because it's so limited to the amount of people we can let in. So please register as soon as possible, utah.tourism.org.
And we can thank the Shop in Utah program for making that so affordable. Isn't that right, Cody?
That's correct.
Yeah, great. All right, well, I think that wraps up our discussion. I just want to thank the Utah Rural Summit again, and Stephen, Liz and B, and all the folks at the Utah Rural Summit for having us and having this panel today. If you have any questions for any of us, I think our contact information will be made available to you. And we hope to see you at the Utah Rural Summit and hopefully at our upcoming tourism conference, both the Utah State Conference and the Southern Utah Conference in November. So thank you so much, and thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for participating in this virtual symposium. We really appreciate your attendance and your willingness to understand details that will help our rural communities. As you continue to take action in your community, reach out to the experts you spent time listening to. They're here to be mentors and part of your support circle. Good luck, and thank you.